Hello, my name is Stephanie Kidd. I am here today to talk to you about mathematics. I work at the Kentucky Valley Educational Co-op as a math consultant. We today are going to talk about what does math look like for your student or your child in kindergarten. So, what are some games or activities that I can do that's going to be useful for my student in kindergarten? Well, first of all, let's talk about some of the things that they need to know going to school. Well, of course, they need to know their first name, their last name, their age, their birth date, um, telephone numbers. Telephone numbers can be hard for our students, so keep that in mind that they need to know exactly what their telephone number is and hopefully another number of a contact that we can contact, like their grandparents or maybe even a neighbor who's very close to them. Some other things that they need to know going into kindergarten is their address. Now, I know that this can be long, and zip codes are one of those things that it's bunched. So we need to make sure that they understand their address to its fullest with the zip code. Now, the other thing that we want our students to understand is body parts. But I want to talk today about some transition words that help in mathematics when we're talking about our body parts. So we can talk about the hand, and we can talk about the fingers and the different types of fingers, such as thumb and index finger, and the small finger, the pinky finger here. And this is the ring finger. We can talk about those kind of things, but we can talk about size. And so, talking about if they are larger or smaller, those are words our students need to understand when they're working with mathematics, but also understanding length of these will help our students. So I like talking to my students about, okay, this finger is longer than this finger. And we talk about that in measurement, or this finger is longer than this finger. And so that's something that we need to do. We need to talk about larger and smaller and longer and shorter. Those kind of words are something that we need to talk about, or it has more, it has less. Those are very important mathematical terms that they need to know, yet we take them sometimes for granted. Now, another thing that we need to talk about today is just basically their gross motor skills of walking and counting sometimes their steps. That's important. They can understand distance with that. So, one of the gross motor skills that you can do is counting how many hops that they can do on a foot or how many hops they can do in general, and then talking to them about walking, and we're counting our steps, and that gets into distance. All good things that they need to know. Now, I'm going to show you a little bit later some games and things that you can do, but these are games you can do with your student now. So keep that in mind when you're working with our kids. Another thing that we need to talk about is their visual motor skills. So with visual motor skills, I like to use pipe cleaners, and I have some Christmassy colored ones here, but pipe cleaners are really good. They're cheap too. That's another thing. And you can order those or get them at Walmart. You can get them at the Dollar Tree, different places like that. But these actually help with creating and making some different things. As a parent, I want my child to be able to do um, multiple things going into kindergarten so that they have an understanding. They have a ability to um, they already have an understanding there. So this gets them kind of ahead of a game. I'm preparing them kind of thing. And as adults, we do better when we're prepared. So I want to talk about just a couple of things for visual that we need to make sure that they're doing visual motor skills and pipe cleaners, Play-Doh. Play-Doh is a great one. Play-Doh I can create and then I can smush them down as I'm counting them. And so it also gets into that organization and understanding. But pipe cleaners today, we're going to talk about just how we can arrange things. I can make an X. I can make a T so they can see those things. Also, I can take the pipe cleaners and I can start and I can make, well, I'm not doing a real good job here. I can make a rectangle And we can talk to them about the differences between a rectangle and a square. We can also make a triangle. So students can make a triangle. So they can make a triangle with theirs. We can talk about what around us looks like a triangle, what around us looks like a square. So we can talk about the box, maybe that came from Amazon, or we can talk about the Cheetos box, or Cheez-Its box. We can talk about those kind of things. The cereal box is a rectangle, and we can get into more technical terms if we wanted to and call it a prism. Those are some things that we can do as parents every day, identifying the different signs as we're going down the road, stop signs and octagon. We can do multiple things like that every day. So I really like it when I see parents and they're going through the store at Walmart or through Food City and they're like, oh, will you grab me the brown rectangular box? One, brown is a descriptive word and they need to know their colors. And then, of course, if they say rectangular box, or if they say, oh, the one with circles on it, so that the student or child knows which one they need to grab. Also, I want them to be able to draw some. Now, I'm not going to be real particular right now when they draw an X and it looks like this because the lengths are different. I'm not going to be real particular, but I want them to know that's an X. If they have to draw a square and they're able to just draw it like this, right now, I just want to know, and they can erase later. I want to know that that is a square and they kind of understand that the lengths are the same. Or if they need to draw a triangle, and they may draw a triangle like this. So they understand that it has three sides. That's the big thing about shapes. I want them to understand how many sides it has and what it looks like so they can identify them. So that's another one. Diamond is really hard for our students. Some of them will call it a kite, but we want them to be able to identify a diamond also. Now, some other information that we want them to be able to do is to sort. So I suggest getting buttons. Let them sort by color, let them sort by shape or size. And so they can start sorting. This would be one where they could sort by color. And so they would put all the blue together. And they would put all of the red together. We'll move the blue over. And then we can start talking about how many do you have? Well, I have one green bear. I have, and this is what I want to see my students do. I want to see them organize. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 blue bears. And I have 1, 2, 3 red bears. So this is all the things that I want my students to be able to do. Sort by, and like I said, remember these, I want to sort by shape, size, I want to sort by color, and I want to sort by shape. And so if you have different shapes, this is a really good one. Now, sometimes we have those magnetic alphabet on the fridge, and those are wonderful. One of the things I would suggest is you start, especially if they're multiple colors, start having the kids sort those by color. Then they can have all the blue on one side of the fridge, all the red on another, maybe the green is somewhere in the yellow, and maybe there's multiple colors, so that's even better. So letting them sort by those three things. Don't forget size. One of the things is, dads, this is a great spot for you. You've got different sizes of screws or nails, and you need to have them sorted. Just get a couple of plastic containers and have the kids to sort those by the length. And that's a wonderful way for them to be able to start sorting. So things around the house that you can use definitely is that. Mom, you know those socks that you have? Sorting those and matching. Oh, that's a wonderful activity for our kids to do. So they can start seeing similarities and differences. And that's huge for our kids. I love it when kids are sorting socks and they'll come through and they're like, this one's really long and this one's really short, but they're both black. Can I put them together? And you're like, are they the same? And so that's one of the things that you need to think about when you're doing mathematics. Things I can use around the house. I use for counters beans. Beans are cheap, they're dry, they're easy to put in a bag, and we can do counting activities with them. And they travel well in a Ziploc bag. Another thing that we need to think about is counting. Now, I know that we've got that sing song thing down where they go from 1 to 10 and they count and they go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But then when I have a student who cannot go, I go 1, 2, 3, and they have to go all the way back to 1, that's a concern. I want them to be able to count from any number. So our big concern with kids coming into kindergarten is making sure that they can count to 30. But I know there's numbers past that. So if they can go past that, that's great. But let's keep them small at first. So we teach them 1 through 5, and then we teach them 1 through 10, and then we move on to 1 through 15, and then 1 through 20, and then we move on to 1 through 30. So we're getting them to a point of crossing decades. From 10 to 11 is really hard because those teen numbers, they're just weird. And then 20 is real easy because it's 21, 22, 23, and they just say 20 and then the next number is coming. It's a little bit easier for them, but then they get to 29 and they're like, what's that next number? What's that next number? 30 is crossing what we call crossing the decade. That's so hard for them to do. So understanding that we don't want our kids just going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, that sometimes we'll go, okay, we're going to start at 4 today, and then we're going to count up. So they have to be ready to skip those first numbers and go on and count at this point. So sometimes I'll say, we're going to count today and we're going to start at 3. And they're going to need to go 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What's that next number? And understand it can't really be sing song. The big thing that's going to get them to this point is having objects that they count often. Now, I know that we've got away from doing a lot of board games, but board games have a lot of good qualities in them. And the reason I love Chutes and Ladders and Candyland and those kind of things is those same games provide my students with a lot of math skills. And so I'm not saying run out to Walmart right now and buy Candyland or Chutes and Ladders or Trouble, those kind of games that get our students counting. But those kind of games are wonderful for our kids that develop those counting skills. Plus, they develop what we call subitizing, and it gets them counting all over again. Like they're playing the game, they're going through, and it also teaches them skills of taking turns. It teaches them skills of understanding that, it's okay. Everybody can play the game, and we can be nice, and we take turns, and it's okay if we have a winner in the game. Um, and as long as you tried your best, that's better because, and you were nice and you were cooperative. Those kind of things are good skills for our students to have. Now, besides those kind of things of counting through 30, I want to talk today about, we want to also have students matching so they understand some matching. So if I have 2 and 2, are these the same? So they're able to match numbers. They're able to match 2 with 2. They're able to match 3 with 3. And another good activity that you can have is just to have 1, 2, 3, and have them to redraw. So that's another good activity that you can use. Just have them to redraw yours, and you count 1, 2, 3, and then they count 1, 2, 3. That's something that you can do. It's quick and easy. And like I said, I like the idea of cheap. We're not buying anything special. This is just paper, pencil, or a dry erase board and a marker. Now, so having them to match what I am doing. So if I draw 8, they draw 8. And that goes back to even with the numeral. Now, I understand that we want our kids to be able to write their numbers, But the big thing is understanding the quantity behind that number. So let's make sure that we can do that. Let's make sure that every time that we are working with our students, not only do they know 1, 2, and they can go 1, 2, that counting piece, and they're touching it and they understand. And then gradually they're just saying that's 2. And then you say, okay, now write the numeral. And so they write the numeral 2. And they understand that. They understand the quantity behind that number, the symbol. That's what we call it. They know the quantity behind the symbol. And sometimes if you've got some report cards to where they're checked off on skill-based, you'll see symbol on there, and that's what it means. The other thing is determining two sets or two groups or those kind of things. And you will see this often with our students and in your first couple of years with kindergarten and first grade and even preschool is a 10 frame. Now, a 10 frame allows our students to organize. I love 10 frames, and I think that you were getting in your packet some wonderful little counters that look like this. Now, I like things that they can pick up and move. So if you've got some of those things that are big that they can maneuver around if they have some trouble with pincher grasp. The cool thing about smaller things is it requires that pincher grasp. They need so much for using a pencil and for picking up things and then later being able to cut. So one of the things that I like to do with my students is that we just lay these out and we count 1, 2, 3, and they start to see that's 3. But they also see that this is 3. 1, 2, 3. They also can see that this is 3. Now, I do want them to organize, but sometimes our kids will lay these out and they'll be like this. And can you tell me that's 3? How do you know that's 3? There's 2 here and 1 here. I didn't say plus, did I? I said there's 2 here and 1 here. And so that's some of the things that we can talk about. That's the inclusion of a number, as we call it for teachers. So understanding that 2 and 1. I also, let's go back to those board games I was talking about earlier. And this goes back to that supertizing. When a student can look at this and say that's 3, they really understand 3 because they know it's 2 and 1, or they know it's 1, 1, and 1, and they can go 1, 2, 3. That all is inclusive in it. So I want them to be able to do that. I want them to be able to see this and say, that's 5. How do you know that's 5? Well, it's 2, 1, and 2, and that makes 5. Like I said, I never said plus in this. I just said what it was. Or how do you see that sometimes? Sometimes they'll say 1, 3, and 1. That's interesting, isn't it? Because that's a different way of seeing it. And to understand that math can be seen different ways, and there's multiple ways to get around a problem. This starts building what we call perseverance, understanding that, oh, well, if this way didn't work, let me try this. And so we want them to be able to do that. And you'll hear teachers talk about math practices, and one of those is persevering through the math. Now, I've heard parents, I've heard teachers, and I've heard just about everybody say, well, I'm not a math person. That's not true. We all learn different ways. And so the way we learn math is a little bit different from others. Sometimes my way of thinking is not the same way with you. We have vertical learners who learn better when things are this way. We have horizontal learners who learn better when things are this way. That's the difference between the child who will put down 1, 2, 3. That's a horizontal, compared to the child who will say 1, 2, 3. That's vertical. And you will have that happen. So it's fine. Whichever way, just teach your child to organize. That's the big key to this. I love it when I have students who I'll throw out some cubes and I'll say, count these. And the first thing they do is go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, this is not exactly a straight line, but it's very close, and it allows them to organize their thinking compared to the student who's doing this right here when it's there and they go. And you'll see this. Don't let them do that at first because they're really not proficient at it. So don't let them try to just count in their head. Have them to organize, because when they start organizing like this, they're organizing later. And that's a big part to organization that we want our students to understand. And that's also a part of the math practices is organization. You can do bead strings, and these are great for bracelets. They're great for on a necklace. And then guess what you can do when you're at Walmart and you're walking around or somewhere, and sometimes kids get a little fussy. One of the things that you can do is say, let's play some number games. Show me three. And so they pull over 1, 2, 3, and they show you three. This is a great one for that. The other thing that you can do is show me six. And so the cool thing about this is when I organize these on there, I use two different colors. So this is automatically five, and my student can just go five and one more. There's six. That's huge for our students because then they understand what we call the inclusion of a number. They know that five is built into six. So five and one more is six. So that's automatically in their head. It's kind of like if you say, show me three, and they go two and one more. So that's inclusion of a number. They understand that that's there. Another thing that I didn't think about, but these are pretty cheap, and you can get them at the Dollar Tree, is clothespins. This is a good way to do sorting by color. Of course, you can't do sorting by size because they're all the same size. But we can start talking about show me two blue and one yellow. And so at this point, they can do two blue and one yellow, and they that pincher grass that we want them to have, and they kind of stick it onto either a line, or maybe if you've got a real thin corner of a table, you can put it there. And then you can talk about two and one make how many, and they count 1, 2, 3. And so they can do that. That's another really good activity for our students to do. And we want them to be able to do those kind of things. And you can change up the colors. It keeps them interested. They don't really realize they're doing math or even addition at this point. And we're not calling it addition. We're just working on your numbers at this point. And they understand them better. Dice are great because I can use dice for multiple things. Dice can be used to roll. And then we can talk about the numbers that they see. So what do you see here? I see 2 and 3. 2 and 3 make, and they go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's another way for them to be able to do some addition and subtraction. Now, one of the things that I love is rubber bands and craft sticks. So I know I'm going pretty quick here, and I want you to think about these kind of things. Rubber bands and craft sticks, because I can lay down craft sticks and I can say, okay, again, this goes back to organization, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm organizing those. They can say there's 6. They may organize them as this way. And they go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if they can do that with that break in there and continue instead of going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and counting them all together, that's huge. So some of the things that we like to do. I also like to have, and I'm hoping I brought it with me, but if you have a divider tray that they can do different things with, one of the things that they will do is take numbers, and I'm only working with the numbers that they really understand and know at this point. So let's say that we are proficient to 5. And so we're going to just have 5 of these counters. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to shake them. I'm going to drop them, and they're going to organize them by colors. And you're going to say, now, how many do you have? And they're going to say, I have 4 red and 1 yellow. And then you're going to say, well, how many is that? 4 red and 1 yellow is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. Good. And see how they're doing the quantity with that. And I want them to get that. So that is the inclusion of the number of 4 and 1. I'll do it again. So I'm going to pick them up, shake them up, drop them out. Now, organize them. So I'm going to start with my 4, my red, pull them over, organize my yellow. I have 3 red and 2 yellow. That makes 5. Now, the big thing is when you can drop them again and say, how many do you have? And they can say, oh, I still have 5, but now I have 2 red and 3 yellow. And they understand that number is consistent because I haven't added anything or taken anything away. Another thing I like to do is I like to cover it up and say, now remember we have 5 if I take one away, how many is under there now? And what are they going to work on at this point? They're working on subtraction. So if I take one away, now how many is there? Oh, and you can be as much as you say. Remember, I had 3 yellow and 2 red. That was 5, correct? Now I'm going to remove 1 yellow. What do I have now? And then they can remember I had 2 red, I had 2. Now I have 2 yellow because one's missing, so I have 4. And we talk about that. But the big thing, as I've said all this time, and we talk about it, right? We talk about what we have, we talk about what we see. And so the thing is, for kids, they don't want to be wrong, but you can't be wrong with what you see, right? And I'll say, now what do you see? And they'll tell me. So if they're not for sure or they're not comfortable, I say, what do you see? And I just open up the paper and they tell me what they see. And I say, does that make sense? I removed one. And if not, let's go back and try it again. And then we'll do another one. We'll just go, okay. Now let's organize them. How many did we say we had? 5. Okay, so this time we have 1 red and we have 4 yellow. Now, purple, I'm removing 1 yellow. What should be under there? And they're going to say 1 red, and you're hoping they're going to say 3 yellow. So that makes 4. And so we can remove it and talk about that too. I love the fact that we talk about it. You've heard me say multiple times, we're going to talk about it. And again, like I said before, that's the important step of mathematics, is we're going to talk about it. Now, I love Unifix cubes, and you may not have these at home, but I'm sure you have blocks. Kids love to build, so having them to build blocks that are so many tall, and we count them as we do it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Adding 1 more. How many is that now? And they may need to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or they may not. Either way is fine. So having them to go and count them again. Now we got 5. We're going to add 1 more. How many do we have now? And they're going to go back through, and they may have to start at the bottom and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they count them, and that's fine, so that they can see this is 6. One of the games that you can play with your students or your kid is called wall. I love this game. So if we've got wall, we put up little blocks, and we're going to put up 5 of them because that's what we're working on right now. Like I said, as they build in 6, then we move to 6 one. If they build in 7 and they understand it, we move to 7 blocks. We keep on progressing with it, but we always go back and we check. We make sure we do what we call retrieval. We pull from the back part of our brain and pull it out. So we need to retrieve all that information from the back part of our brain. But sometimes we forget things. So if we are retrieving, we're pulling back from something previous before that they have done so they don't forget it. So sometimes you just need to go back to 3. And they'll be like, oh, Mom, if I got 1 on this side of the wall, there's 2 on the other side of the wall. And they can peek over and make sure. That's how wall works. So we're going to practice it with 5. So I'm going to say, okay, I want you, and they're always away from them. So they're straight up in front of them like this right here, okay? As you can see, this is the way I'm going to have my board. So they're straight in front of them, and I'm going to say, hey, wall off 2. Now remember, we had 5. So what's on the other side of the wall? And technically, they can't see past their hand to really tell. So if they say 3 automatically, then that's great because they understand the inclusion of 5. And so one of the things you can say is, okay, check. And so they peek over the wall and they go 1, 2, 3. Yes, there's 3 there. And so they know that number. And now we can kind of move on if they're really good at this. I'm going to say wall off 4. And if they go automatically to right here, and they know there's only 1 left over after 4, that's great. They understand that. So that's one of the things that I want my students to be able to do. Now, another thing that we may play is we call it split the pot, but we have 2 dividers. And it is unfortunate that I don't think I brought it with us, but it is a divider, and we're going to use this for a divider, and we're going to play split the pot. Now, if you have a divider and they can just drop them, that's great. but I want something that's going to be kind of up the way it falls on either side of them. So I'm going to drop, in this case, 6. We're going to say, okay, where are we at? And now remember, how many did we have? 6, right? So here we have 5. We're going to organize our 5. And we have 1. So 5 and 1 is 6. Now we're just talking about this. Nowhere have we mentioned addition, but we know that 5 and 1 make 6. Do it again. Right. Oh, okay. This time we have, and let me organize like this. This is more your vertical learner that'll organize like this. They'll have 2 and 4. This will come after they've played a lot of Chutes and Ladders and Candyland and those kind of things when they see that 4 on a dice pattern. This is a supertizing 4. You will see it often, and they will know that 2 and 2 is 4. And it's great for later because what also is 2 and 2? 2 times 2, right? So they get to see all of that. So, like I said, math is a progression all the time. So this is one of the things that you can do with your students. Like I said, it doesn't take much. I want something here. That could be a limb off of a tree or a twig off of a tree. There, it could be, I have a bunch of these and we're dropping them on it. And so they're organizing it. It just keeps them from being on a line and being, which side does it go to? That's not a problem. These do not have to be Unifix cubes. They can be beans. They can be soup beans. They can be, I would say rice, but rice gets really messy with the fact that they're tiny and they're hard to find and keep up with. But Cheerios, popcorn, those kind of things that you eat that the kids would like and be able to pop in their mouth, that's fine too. So that's just a few of the activities that I think that you would really enjoy with your students and be able to do anywhere, anytime, pretty much, very quickly. Some other things, like I said, if you've got Play-Doh, please bring out the Play-Doh. Have them make little balls with the Play-Doh, and then they line them up and you count them, right? And you say, okay, now a big giant comes by and he stomps on 2 of them. How many rocks do you have left? And so these 2 rocks are stomped. How many do you have left? That's a good way to do that for subtraction. And for them to understand, well, if I had 7 and 2 of them got stomped, now I only have 5. And so we start talking that way. It's the same way with this right here. We can do these and we do play break it. So we're going to talk about subtraction parts of it. So we can play snap it. It's actually called snap it. Some people call it break it. But so I have in my hand 6 and I'm going to snap it. Now I'm going to snap mine. You're going to snap yours. And if I snap it, now what do I have? I have 3 in this hand and 3 in this hand. Now we can hide these. So we can put them behind our back. I have 6. I put it behind my back. I pull out one side. So I snapped it. I pull out one side. I have 2. Now, how many is behind my back? And so at this point, what would we need to know? They need to know how many's in 6. So if I have 2 here, how many more should I have behind my back? They can check real quick. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Just another activity that they can do to understand subtraction. But we're not calling it subtraction. We're calling it snap it at this point. And they're understanding what's included in that number. I forgot 2. I had to have 4 more to make 6. Again, we'll do another one. We're going to have 7 here. So I've got 7. I put them behind my back. Pulling out 1. I have 3. If I know what's inside 7, now, like I said, if they don't know what's inside 7, we're going to move back and we're only going to go with 6, and they're going to do it multiple times. You're going to do it too. The cool thing is, if I have 7, this is my snap it, and I have 7 here, and this is my snap it, we can talk about the difference. So this is 2 and 5, that makes 7. This is 3 and 4, that makes 7. Wow, so 7 can be made different ways. And if I'm snapping it and I have three, how many more do I need to make seven? I need four more. Now, another thing that I'm going to suggest to you is don't forget a number line. Number lines are important for our students and understanding quantities that go with. So each time that you're working with your students, draw out a number line or do what I did and create one on a computer because my handwriting sometimes is not the best. You're going to see that now. So we're going to work within 9. And I like it when I create it on a computer because they're equal distance apart, especially if you create it on an Excel sheet. Or if you just have a number line, like a rule, that's a great one. Just get your tape measure out, snap it down, and there you go. All right, so 1, 2, I can start seeing this. 3. So if I have 3, now one more makes 4. And so in this case, we're going to turn these all over because that's driving me crazy. I want to show 4. So there they are. Think of these can be beans. Put down 4. And they put them down on each one of them. And then there's a correspondence there to the symbol that we want them to know. So having those things, there's 3 aspects of a number. We want to know that the symbol, of course, we want to understand the counting part of it, the one-to-one of it, making sure that they understand all of that is very important for each individual student. And it's important also for us to have those conversations. So many things that you need to do. There was a couple of games, like I said, that you can play. I really suggest that if you've got dice, that you play games of which one has more. And so I'm going to roll, he's going to roll. Who has more at this point? And so they'll look at them and say, okay, this is mine and this is my son's. Who has more? And how do you know that? That's the next question. How do you know that's more? How do you know 6 is more? Well, we can start talking about these 2 are the same. These 2 are the same. Oh, look, I still have 2 more and all of yours is covered up. So I have more. And then roll again. Who has more? And then we can talk about it again. Look, the pattern for the 4 is inside this 5. I have more because I have an extra dot. Or I love this when this happens. We roll. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. And we both get 6. Who has more? Neither. We have the same because 6 and 6 are the same. And so they can start to see that. I love these kind of activities. Now, let's go back for a few minutes. Counting steps when you're walking up them. That's another one. You know, I said when they're moving, we're counting the steps. So if you're going up steps or you're going upstairs or whatever, we count them. I mean, it's quick and easy. We just count as we're doing it. And it's an activity that they can get used to and do. In the elevator, as they're moving up, I will talk to my child about the numbers of the elevator. And as they change colors, we've done that. Road signs. Who can identify all the numbers through whatever before we get back? If we're going on a long trip, that's one of the things that we use is license plates. Can you find these numbers? And so we talk about who had the biggest number that they found. And so we write them down and we do those. Those are some things that you can do when you're driving around. Just a few of the activities. I Spy is a great one. I spy a 7, and then they had to find it. I spy a 12. Oh, there's a 12 on the road sign, Mom. That kind of thing is a great game for your students. Make sure that you're playing little games like that get them familiar with numbers. So, but the big thing is making sure they understand the quantity behind that number. It's so hard for us as adults to understand what a million would look like. But it's not hard for us because we've experienced what 10 people would look like. So 10 people in a room, we've had 10 people in a room. We understand what that looks like. We understand the space that we take up, but what would a million people look like if they were crowded in together? And what would that, what would that size be? Understanding that is just something that would, kind of like, wow, I don't know, how big would that actually be? So those kind of things is making sure students understand the quantity and the size behind a number. If you have any questions, always contact me at stephanie.kidd@kentuckyvalley.org. If you have any questions, talk to your kindergarten teacher, your preschool teacher about different activities that you can do for mathematics. I hope you enjoyed our Floyd County Tiny Academy today. And if you have any questions, like I said, feel free to contact your teachers and talk to them at parent nights and those kind of things. They are always willing to talk to you about how can you improve your student. If you're concerned or you're worried about them not understanding some numbers, or maybe they're not catching on as quickly as you think they, back up. Our kids need time and every child is different. So back up a couple of numbers, start back out with just one. Show me one, show me two, show me three. We'll gradually get it. Do different activities, can't always be the same ones, and use different things. Oh, today we use, this is a big kicker for my kids, because sometimes it's hard for us as adults to change. Well, guess what? It's hard for kids to change too. So if I show my student every day with bear counters and then all of a sudden I bring these up, it's like a foreign object to them. So as parents, if we can use different things, then guess what? It's a great way for us to do. One last thing I do want to share with you is if you have toothpicks in your home and a little bit of Play-Doh, that is a great way to start making shapes. So I hope you enjoy this today. I hope you get lots of information from it. And I hope there's activities here that you found that you can do with your student. So today, I want you just to take a few minutes to think about what's around my house that I can use. And again, if you need to contact me, my name is Stephanie Kidd, and you can email me at stephaniekidd@kentuckyvalley.org.